Soundbytes. I'm Brandon Peña, editor-in-chief of The Signal, and today on this 25th episode of Signal Soundbytes, we are having our special midterm elections edition. Joining me today are three awesome guys, and they're going to introduce themselves right now.
Hello, everyone. My name's Troylon Griffin II. Haven't been on a podcast in a while, so it's good to be back for our special episode.
My name is Shellshear. I'm a reporter here at The Signal. I think this is my second Signal Soundbites, so glad to be part of it.
Hey, what's up? This is Justin Murphy, the other co-managing editor for The Signal. Woo!
Woo! Alright guys, so today's episode we're going to be talking about the midterm elections, which will include discussions of both the national and local level races. So first up, the 2018 midterm elections are here, and early voting kicked off on October 22nd with over 5 million votes casted either in person or through absentee ballots. Based on the 538 projections from ABC News, there is a 5 in 6 chance that Democrats will win control of the House, while there is a 5 in 6 chance Republicans will keep control of the Senate. In Harris County alone, a record-breaking 63,000 in-person ballots casted on the first day of early voting. So first up, personal politics aside, what do you think is driving more people to the polls?
Well, you did say keep things not personal, but I think that honestly, with how our politics have been in the past 2 years, this has pressured a lot of people who may not have voted before to want to suddenly vote. I don't know about anyone else, but when the midterms were happening, years ago, whenever they were happening again, in the past, I certainly don't remember there being this big of, advocacy to go out and vote. Like, it really feels like it might as well be a presidential election. I swear, I don't recall this level of advocating. So,
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that I think everybody's definitely kind of stepped up their game in terms of promoting, getting registered, getting your ballots cast in early voting, especially. I think is really, really incredible. Like you were saying, there's record numbers being broken all across the country, which is incredible, I think.
Especially here in Harris County.
Yeah. So
I think that more people are voting because, if you think about the amount of, if you want to call us millennials or younger people that are able to vote now, there's a lot more of us. And so I think just generally, if you have more people, then the more people are going to vote. Even though the voter turnout might still be a very low percentage, that percentage will still include a bigger amount of people.
So as college students, do you guys know of any of your peers who are also voting?
Oh yeah.
Are you guys voting?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to.
You know what?
I kind of feel like I have to.
What is that?
For my country. Nothing else.
I feel like it's just our civic, we talk about civic responsibility.
Yeah.
I feel like that's, if you don't vote, then.
Plus, I'd hate to be shamed for not voting.
Anyway,
Some of that's
I feel like there's always that old saying, you can't complain if you don't vote.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, I've only been able to vote once because I am recently an adult. I'm 19, so there haven't been that many things I can vote in. So it's also good to be able to vote for the second time and everything and say I voted.
Very cool. So how do you think, or how much do you think that this year's midterms will impact the 2020 elections? Whether it be political or whether it be voter turnout, how do you think it's going to impact the 2020 elections?
Really significantly, because ultimately, I think, like we were saying, we're seeing these record numbers being broken. Whether it's because there's just more people voting due to maybe political tension. I think that that's only going to increase. I especially think that with this midterm election, like Troylon was saying, we're seeing a lot of increase in, just campaigns for registering to vote and, political campaigns on social media. I think that, 2008 would have been one of the first times that social media was heavily used for a campaign. And I think that 10 years down the road, we've really sussed out how to do it and how to do it right. And so I think that that's why we're seeing the numbers we are. And I think that that'll continue to grow and evolve.
But
through the 2020 election.
But with that, we have seen how social media can be used to campaign right, but we've seen how it can be used to campaign wrong as well.
Yeah.
With ad hominem attacks and
Absolutely.
just all these logical fallacies that are used on social media. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So we have another guest panelist is our own online editor, Alyssa Shotwell. She just showed up. So Alyssa, quick question before we move on. Personal politics aside, what do you think is driving more people to the polls?
Personal politics aside, part of it, I feel like, is the big move to get younger people to vote, because older populations that are been voting, like, they're gonna vote in this election unless they died. That's not okay, unless they passed away. I'm sorry. There's been a lot of campaigns, like I think it's called Rock the Vote. And then there's a few other really big ones. And personal politics aside, I think people on every side are upset about something right now. And with it being a midterm election, if you're not happy with whatever's going on, midterms matter quite a bit more, in my opinion, than the presidential one, because that's telling the people in charge at state and federal level, like, I'm okay with this or I'm not okay with this. So if you're okay with this, you're probably not going to show up. You get complacent.
Very true. All right. So moving on, in Texas, by far the most talked about race is Republican Ted Cruz versus Democrat Beto O'Rourke for the Senate. Currently, Real Clear Politics polling data shows Cruz is ahead of O'Rourke by 7 points. Additionally, the governor race shows Republican Greg Abbott ahead of Democrat Lupe Valdez by 20 points. So what do you think, we kind of touched on this a bit ago, what do you think social media's role is in this year's election? How do you think it's being played out?
I know for sure that this kind of has to do with social media, but I've seen so many like yard signs this year, like for Senate, like either whether it's Beto or whether it's supporting Cruz. Like I've seen so many yard signs, and then on social media, I've seen so many people campaigning for both candidates as well. And so it's like with social media, especially like Twitter, because that's where a lot of people are. I assume so, because I know I'm there, and that's where I get a lot of my that's where I see a lot of stuff. Like seeing, I forgot what I was gonna say. Seeing on Twitter, people like reviewing the debates and reviewing like policies, or like saying like, oh, they don't support this and they don't support this. Yeah, you can get a lot of misinformation there, because like someone could show a picture of like, and they could say it's the rally for Ted Cruz in Houston when it was actually like a championship in Cleveland that the picture was. But people are just so quick to believe everyone on social media. So there's a big like kind of like, I don't want to say like mistrust factor, but you have to kind of discern like what's true and what's not. And you have to do your own research. Yeah.
I have a pro tip. Sorry.
Oh, you can go.
A pro tip for social media images specifically. This will help determine the validity of the image. Is right-click, search Google for that image, and you'll see if it's come up. Like if the image is for, say, the rally, how many of these pictures have been posted in the last few hours versus was posted several years ago? This happens the same thing, not just with political rallies, but like with things having to do with like terrorism or a myriad of things. Like right-click and search Google. It takes like 2 seconds, especially if you're on desktop. Go on.
I think, as usual, social media is proving to be both a good tool and a bad tool for campaigns. I mean, social media in general can be used for some of the best good and also for some of the not so good. And that being said, it is definitely fulfilling its role that I would expect it to in politics. It's informing and helping people, motivating people even, but it's also misinforming and maybe not motivating people, or motivating people to vote for someone that maybe they shouldn't.
How do you think that, when it comes to candidates using social media, whether it be Facebook Live, whether it be tweeting, things like that, how do you think it's influencing maybe people to vote?
So I think that, obviously I would say that Beto O'Rourke has a lot of popularity with young voters. And I think that young voters via things like Twitter, like Justin mentioned, I think that they've really further popularized him as a candidate. And we also kind of see other candidates like Ted Cruz, using social media more frequently and, very actively kind of pursuing similar channels to try and kind of reach that similar audience, it seems. So I think it's really interesting how it seems like both parties are very highly focused on social media now as a point of contact with their potential constituents.
And I know like Ted Cruz did that like basketball game against Jimmy Kimmel. I forget what they called it, something fish flop or something. But that was a big thing on social media. Yeah, that was huge on social media. I remember because at the time I was an intern at Texas Children's and Jimmy Kimmel was representing Texas Children's. And so we were like, oh, we got to monitor social media and all this stuff. So
something, part of the reason somebody will vote or not vote for somebody is relatability. And when there's a lot of phonetic differences between people, like gender or race or age or myriad of things, social media is something that a lot of people do. So if you can show that you use it correctly or just in general and reach directly to the people versus all of the advertisements and stuff like that, that is something that will push people to vote for you more. And that's not just like a Democratic thing. Trump did the same thing in the 2016 election. He got people pumped up through social media by taking out all the filler that people see as like politicians are different from us, bringing it back to they're more like us, helps the candidate out a lot.
So, do you guys think that polls such as, the different polling sites saying, who was ahead, who was against, encourages or discourages voters? Should they be accessible to the public? In a sense, because does it, if I knew that a certain candidate was ahead that maybe I'm not voting for, or maybe a candidate that I'm voting for is behind, would that encourage me or discourage me to vote?
It's personally discouraging to me to hear if my candidate is down however many points. So I would say that to some degree, it is discouraging, but at the same time, I think that it's important to keep that information available because it does kind of, I think, press people and even the campaigns to campaign harder and try and reach more people. And I don't think that it's a negative thing for any of the potential representatives of our country to continue to campaign for themselves and campaign for the people they're going to represent.
I think it like he said, it's like a good, for some people it will encourage them, for some people to be like, oh well, there's no hope. I feel like it's kind of most exciting when things are really close, because those fringes of my vote doesn't matter, or oh, I'm good, I don't need a vote because they're going to win anyways, those people are more likely to participate in the election because they feel like their vote has more weight. I'm not saying make them all look like that, tell the truth, but whenever they are closer, I feel like there's more energy to vote.
I think also the polls, I agree with what both of you have said. Also, I think the polls can be very motivating too, because, let's say somebody thought that, Cruz was going to by far win, and that person, whoever might think that, they really supported Cruz and they hadn't voted yet. If they see that Cruz is behind, or they see that Beto's behind, whoever they see that they support is behind, if they see that it's like that, they're going to be like, oh my, I need to go out and definitely vote then, so I can make sure that they aren't behind and they can be ahead. So I think it can be motivating, but I can definitely see how there are also people who might think, oh man, see, I knew that they weren't going to win, I shouldn't vote at all. But hopefully people are not having that attitude as much.
You just take it with a grain of salt, acknowledge it, but don't let it get to you. Also because they've been wrong before by staggering numbers, so even a close thing isn't an accurate representation.
Nice. All right, so in this special edition of Signal Sound Off, the panelists will answer one question. And so for all of you, why should college students vote?
College students should vote because, presumably if you're in college in this country, then the things that happen in this country and the decisions that this government makes, do kind of fall on you as a citizen of the government to some degree. And so you should be able to make sure that the people running our government can be held responsible by you, because this government is for you. And so I would definitely say that that's why it's important for college students, or really anybody, to vote.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. College students should vote because obviously we are in college, and even if you're not in college, point is, if you're of the age of a typical student in college, we are the future of this country. We're going to continue making it what it is. But, obviously the same goes for the politicians. So we should be but further enforcing what those politicians do for us. Plus also, even on I guess you could say a college education level, colleges do tend to be state funded, or there is lots of government funding that goes into them. So that being said, we need to be able to vote. So then whoever we choose to vote for, it'll affect our colleges positively too. Because otherwise, if we don't vote, then people might affect our college and our education in ways we don't want. And then we have dissatisfaction with college, and we don't need dropouts. And who knows? Maybe if more college students vote, student debt won't be that bad either. But that's just speculation. I'm just saying. But college students should vote because government enforces college stuff.
I have a few reasons, but I'll just keep it to two.
I'm sorry if I went too long.
Okay, if you allow people, only have people that are voting that are ages like 50, 60, 70, the laws and the people that they're going to put in place are going to affect your life for its entirety. It's only going to affect them for a few more years, a couple more decades. But if you're not a part of that decision-making process, which is the voting process, then you're allowing somebody else to make your decisions for you. You were a teenager a few years ago, you might be one now, and how does that feel when somebody tells you what to do? I'm going to go with the emotional drive. A former president recently said you wouldn't let your grandparents pick your Spotify playlist. You just saw the way our Senate, our elected leaders were interviewing Mark Zuckerberg like they've never opened a browser before. So maybe you can elect people that do know the questions to ask in this changing world, things that you're dealing with. And if you had a bad employee, wouldn't you fire them and hire somebody else? I'm just saying. Just logic.
Preach.
I think college students could
That's saying
Me
it.
and Troylon are the only ones that aren't going to have a cut.
Yeah.
I think that college students should vote because of the fact that, we think that everyone thinks that they don't have a say in what happens in this country. But everyone thinks, my one vote's not going to matter. Yeah, it does matter because you're showing the world that, hey, I do take pride in what my country does and I do care what happens to my country. And college students, if you look at the typical ages of college students, it's 18 to 25 or something like that. If you want to put that barometer of age on there, the population that is in that age group is growing, and it's going to continue to grow because more people are having kids, and it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. And so when we say, I can't influence the election at all, or I can't do this, if you and all of your friends go vote, that's a big, and you get more of your friends to vote and more of your friends to vote, then that's just going to continue to increase the voter turnout, and then you really can have a say in what happens in this country.
And it starts locally. Don't just wait for the
presidential elections.
Yeah, there's the midterms. Your city has bonds that go through every other year. Your school has elections. It's called the SGA. They have elections every year. There's plenty of ways to exercise your right to vote because people died for that, both people in the military and civilians. So you should find value in that.
And for those who think whether it be the vote or your voice, well, more so your voice, for those who think that their voice doesn't matter, just think of all the people who, have given up because they thought that, but think of all the people who didn't give up and look where they are now, whether they're good people or bad people, they made their voice matter. And you know,
Yeah.
now they're out
to their
there.
platform.
Exactly.
I've always been in the camp that if you don't feel that your vote matters, you should vote anyway, because then as long as you voted and you can prove that you voted because you have a voting receipt, then at some point and to some degree you may be able to prove that if the system is as flawed as you believe it is, then you should be able to prove it through the documentation you have of voting. So go vote.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions is that when it comes to presidential elections, there's the Electoral College, and I think that's why so many people assume that their vote doesn't count. But when it comes to local elections, when it comes to your state elections, your vote does count because there is no Electoral College when it comes to those votes. So it really does make a difference between 1 to 2 votes sometimes. So get out there and vote, guys. And to help you do that, to find your nearest voting location, you can Google the phrase voting places near me. This will bring up a box for you to type in the address that you are registered at. After that, Google will give you locations and times for you to not only vote on November 6th, but also to early vote. Also, you can go to houston.eatery.com to find places to snack some really cool food specials after you've done voted. So go check that out. And lastly, remember that early voting ends November 2nd and election day is November 6th. So for more reporting, head to uaclsignal.com, like us on Facebook, and send us your comments and suggestions to signalsoundbites@uaclsignal.com. Additionally, if you get out and vote, let us know by using hashtag #adultingwiththesignal on your social media post. Any final closing thoughts, guys?
Go vote! Vote!
Oi.
And get far afterwards.
Sorry.
I don't know if they have discount.
Sorry.
Yeah.